Girl, you too do fine. Do you healing your love? Girl, you too do fine. Do fine. Do fine. Boom, boom, boom. Hey, boom. Boom, boom, boom. Hey, boom. Boom, boom, boom. Hey, boom. Boom, boom, boom. Boom. Boom, boom, boom. Hey, boom. Boom, boom, boom. Hey, boom. Boom, boom, boom. Boom. Boom, boom, boom. Let me stop playing. What up, my little schnitzels? How we doing in the building? We doing all right. I gotta fix my posture so y'all can stop thinking I'm slouching down. But you know what? The girlies is, they there. So it's only so much non-slouching I could do. Oh, my back. I need to go to a chiropractor. But you already know how we get down with this. It is r/am I the a-hole by shot-jello 4878. Am I the a-hole for not telling my parents I was hospitalized for a week to prove a point? ETA, I just woke up and started reading through all the comments. Sorry if I can't reply to everyone individually, but I've noticed a lot of the same questions coming up, so I'll answer some of them. We're going to go ahead and scroll down to actually get to the actual thing. Okay, let's get it. I live in another city while my parents, both in their late 50s, still live in my hometown. We actually have a really good relationship overall. I usually fly at home every Christmas. We talk often, and there's no major family drama. But there's one thing about them that has driven me and everyone else in our family insane for years. They're completely careless with their phones. They'll leave their phones in another room all day, leave them on silent by accident, or forget to charge them so the battery dies for an entire day. Sometimes I'll call 5 or 6 times before someone finally answers hours later. I've talked to them about it many times because they don't have a landline, so their cell phones are literally the only reliable way to reach them. Yes, I understand they come from an older generation, aren't exactly tech savvy. They didn't grow up attached to phones the way younger people did, but they're not that old. And I still feel like if your cell phone is your only form of communication, you should at least keep it charged and within hearing distance. I've told them things like, what if there's an emergency, or what if someone urgently needs to contact you? They've always brushed it off and act like I'm overreacting. Last month, I got severe food poisoning and ended up hospitalized for a week. It wasn't life-threatening, but I was pretty miserable. While I was in the hospital, I tried calling both of them multiple times over 2 days. No answer. One phone was dead. The other apparently was left somewhere in the house. At that point, I got frustrated and only just gave up trying. Now, to be fair, I could have contacted my aunt, who lives near them, and she would have absolutely had told them. But after years of having this issue, I decided not to. Part of me thought maybe it's the only way we'll finally understand why people keep their phone. They'll finally understand why people keep their phones accessible. Yesterday, I was talking to my mom on the phone and casually mentioned, oh yeah, last month I was hospitalized for food poisoning for about a week. She completely freaked out and got really angry that I never told them. I explained that I did try to contact them repeatedly, but they didn't answer. She said I still should have called my aunt because this was an emergency. I admitted that I could have done that, but I intentionally didn't because I wanted them to finally realize how irresponsible they are with their phones. That made her even angrier. She said I used my hospitalization to prove a point and scare them unnecessarily. My dad thinks we're both being stubborn. I honestly didn't think it was a huge deal since I recovered fine and it wasn't life-threatening, but now I'm wondering if I took the lesson too far. Am I the a-hole? And then we're going to respond to the we're going to read the ETA, which is like basically them clearing up some questions that people had in there. Why didn't you just leave a text or voicemail? This is OP. My parents basically do not text. They're terrible at it. Messages can sit unread for weeks. If they want to communicate, they call. Same with voice notes. We use WhatsApp. They rarely check them unless someone specifically tells them to. Why don't they install a landline? Because they don't want to. Simple as that. Our old landline was disconnected years ago and they never bothered getting another one installed. They're not even that old. Why can't they just learn how to use a phone? I think some people are misunderstanding what I mean by I say they're not tech savvy. For context, I live in Asia, and when my parents were younger, internet access and mobile phones were a luxury where we lived. In my hometown back then, only relatively wealthy people had mobile phones. My parents only got their first phones after my oldest brother moved away from college so they could stay in contact with him. And honestly, even back then, they were hard to reach. So when I say they're not tech savvy, I don't mean old people can't understand technology. I mean they generally do not care enough to learn beyond the absolute basics. My dad once accidentally called our family WhatsApp group while him and mom were gossiping about someone from church. Thankfully, it was only our family group and not the church group itself. So yeah, that should paint a picture. What do you expect them to be glued to their phones 24/7? I don't. When I say it takes multiple attempts to reach them, I don't mean I I don't mean I'm calling every 2 hours every day expecting immediate responses. I mean that whenever I do call, it often takes several tries before they answer, or they'll only notice hours later and call back then. They don't check notifications, they don't browse the internet, they don't watch YouTube or play games. They basically use their phones like old-fashioned cordless landlines whose only purpose is making calls. I've actually shown them how to use other features before, but they simply don't care enough to bother with any of it because, to them, phones are just for calling. I'm not asking them to become social media addicts. I'm asking them to at least keep their phones charged and maybe check them once or twice a day. Is it really that big of a problem? Yes. My brother and I are not the only people who've complained about this. My parents have missed multiple important family updates because they don't answer calls or check messages. A cousin gave birth. They found out a week later. My mom's brother had surgery to remove kidney stones. She found out days afterward. And every time they get upset and complain that nobody tries hard enough to reach them. That's what makes it exhausting. A lot of commenters are saying they miss the old days before everyone was glued to their phones, and honestly, I get that. But we live in 2026 now. Important updates, emergencies, and family news are mostly communicated through calls and messages now, whether we like it or not. Again, I'm not demanding that my parents stay attached to their phone 24/7. I'm just asking for the bare minimum level of accessibility. Also, for those asking, my emergency contacts are my brothers and my parents. After this whole situation, I've honestly been considering asking my aunt if I could add her too. And lastly, someone claimed to be a medical worker and said my story must be fake because nobody says hospitalized for a week for food poisoning. First of all, people can absolutely end up hospitalized longer depending on dehydration, complications, pre-existing conditions, or other health issues. Second, if there were other medical factors involved, that's not the point of the post, and I don't owe random strangers my medical history. Pretty wild for a supposed medical worker to immediately dismiss someone else's health situation without knowing anything about them. I say you're not. For context, my grandmother is in her 70s. She knows how to use a phone. I can call her, hey, grandma, how was your day? We can sit on the phone for an hour or two. She knows how to use the phone. Anyone can access her. She knows how to use the phone. So I feel like your parents are just purposely not wanting someone to reach them just so they can complain about it. And that would be draining. And that would be aggravating. And you would get aggravated with that person. So overall, I say that you're not the a-hole. I'll just call an aunt from here on out. Because at that point, it's just unnecessary. And I'll start going on my way to give them updates about my life anyway. Y'all don't want to actually put in the effort to see about me, then I guess you won't really hear about me either. That's just me, my pettiness. Don't worry about me. I'm going to be all right. But make sure y'all like, comment, subscribe, turn on the post notifications so you know whenever we post a video. And stay tuned for the next one. And tell me how y'all feel about this. Because overall, I feel like OP's not the a-hole. It's just one of those cases where you're dealing with people that are old and set in their ways. So they don't want to progress past their ways to where you're just bumping a wall. So, yeah. Bye, my schnitzels.